Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Ahlul Bayt Live on Ahlul Bayt TV, and taqabbal Allah to everyone who has just prayed. And I know that, of course, everyone else from different parts of the world will be praying at different times. And we are just talking about the history and spirituality of the months of Rajab and Sha'ban. And also, as I've been saying, it's kind of important to be aware that there are certain groups that are actually campaigning against the holiness of these months and trying to prove that they have no particular merit that's any different from the other months. So just to make that aware, especially so that we, inshallah, appreciate more what has been passed down to us by the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam about these blessed months. So we're still just talking about the month of Rajab. And Sayed Zafar Abbas, you're going to...
as we mentioned before the break, that there's various adhkar and recommended actions that have been mentioned in the holy month of Rajab. The one that's obviously most well known, most common, is the dua that's to be recited after the obligatory prayers. And it's a really short dua, but it again, as I mentioned previously, some reflection over the words of the Imam Salamullahi alayhi are really essential in this particular dua, because it starts, we begin by saying Yaman arjuhu likulli khair. We're addressing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by saying that I have hope from you regarding every good thing.
Right.
So my hope for every good thing and my hope in you is that you will grant me everything that is good for me. And I'm saved from you from any evil that might come towards me. And really fantastically, so that's really a summary of what I want in life. I want everything that's good.
Yeah.
And I want to be safe from everything that's evil, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're the one who can do this way. And then he says that I think this is really the heart of the dua, Ya man yu'til kathira bil qaleel. You're the one who gives a lot in exchange for very little. And that really requires some reflection and some appreciation, really, that whatever I do, it might be a lot for me.
Yeah.
For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a little. But what He gives me in return for that is much more than what I could do. And really that requires all of us to reflect on, whatever I've done is minuscule in the grand scheme of things. Yet whatever I've received is much greater than the exchange that I would have received if it was a normal exchange.
Yeah.
So, for example, I was reminded of a saying from our fourth holy Imam, Salamullahi alayhi, where he, when he's talking about shukr and gratitude, and he says, praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has considered the ajaz of shukr, the inability to offer thanks, as shukr, as gratitude. So any gratitude that I offer is an inability to offer gratitude, because I'm going to use those parts of my existence which have all been granted by Him. So if I offer gratitude for my existence, I'm doing so with the tongue, which is also, that ability to say it is also requires gratitude, which I can't do. And yet He's, in His mercy, has considered that to be gratitude. So I think, that really requires us to reflect over the fact that, for example, He's given us this spiritual season of Rajab and Sha'ban and Ramadan as ways for us to remove our, this, what we might call, as a spiritual rust a spiritual hardening, if you like, and it's the same with anything, any worldly example that we might use. If you've got a machinery which is not regularly serviced, then eventually it will either slow down or it will stop working. Similarly, this machinery of the human being, the spiritual machinery of the heart and the soul, if it doesn't receive servicing, it will also slow down or it will stop working altogether. And so he's given us this opportunity in the month of Rajab and Sha'ban, leading up to the holy month of Ramadan, to service our spirituality into that mode of where we want to get it to in the month of Ramadan. And that, in exchange for doing something which is very easy, one fast in this holy month, or one act of charity, one of the important things which is really important to emphasize actually in today's day and age, is that in addition to the fasting and the prayers and the du'as and so on and so forth, charity is very important in the holy month of Rajab. And of course, Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu salam, as we know, were very big on charity. So as followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, charity is very important and up there in terms of whatever little. It doesn't mean, charity doesn't mean you have to give a lot. Whatever little a person can do. And so, really, it's an opportunity that, £1 in charity, or one fast, or one prayer, and these are giving, in exchange for that, what I'm getting is not just not equivalent, it's out of this world. Literally, it's out of this world.
I've noticed also that, sorry to interrupt you, I've noticed also that the recommendations are to, and this is for Sha'ban as well, to fast with taqwa. I mean, like you're saying, the intention is important. So, and it reminds me of one of the khutbahs of Imam Ali alayhi salam in Nahj al-Balagha, where he says that Yawm al-Qiyamah will be a day when intentions are weighed. And so, like you were saying earlier, with regards to the acts of ibadah that people may engage in, everything depends on the niyyah, the intention, because that's what's going to be considered in Yawm al-Qiyamah.
I'm just going to mention a narration about intention, which I believe I have previously mentioned, but it is also worth repeating. There's a hadith of the Holy Prophet of Islam where he says, "An-niyatul mu'min afdalu aw khayru min amalihi." And somebody comes to Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu salam and says to him, "Ya ibn Rasulullah, we've heard this hadith of your grandfather that an-niyatul mu'min khayru min amalihi." The niyyah is better than the action. So they say, well, can you explain this hadith to us? And the Imam Sallallahu Alaihi says that this is indeed a narration of my grandfather, and the meaning behind it, or the reasoning behind it, in Shaykh Saduq alayhi rahman al-Shara'i mentions this narration, says that the reasoning behind this is that the amal, or the action, might be for riyah, for showing off. وَالنِّيَّةُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. But the niyyah is not showing off. It's an intention, but nobody else knows about it. And the niyyah is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So because of that, the niyyah is greater than the action itself. And in fact, another narration, it says that when the action is so great, then the person performing the action is even greater than that.
Right.
Because of course, it's the person who's performed the action, and not the action who's performed the person. So therefore the person performing the action is even greater than that. But coming to this, since we're on the topic of fasting, important rule that needs to be clarified, is commonly asked. I've received this question a number of times, and I'm sure there might be some of our viewers out there who might be interested to know. That's with regards to a person who has some fasts which are qadha. Of course, for varying reasons, people have fasts which need to be made up. One of the rules in that regard is that it's important to make sure, month of Ramadan is close, that any fast that you did not fast in the previous month of Ramadan are made up before the next holy month enters. So you've got Rajab and Sha'ban to do so. And the other thing is that a person cannot fast a mustahab fast if they have qada fasts.
Yeah.
However, this leads to some misunderstanding and some confusion, so important to clarify here. That doesn't mean, for example, that because I have a qada fast, for example, I have a few qada fasts, then I can't fast on a day which is recommended to fast. So for example, if it is mustahab to fast on the 1st of Rajab, or the 13th, 14th, 15th of Rajab, or the 27th of Rajab, or 15th of Sha'ban, so on and so forth, that if I have a qada fast, I cannot fast a qada fast on that day. No, I can fast a qada fast on that day. My intention has to be that I'm doing this fast in lieu of the fast that I missed in the holy month of Ramadan. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful. There's no, restriction or limit to the reward that He will entitle me to. So if I do the qada fast on that particular day when it's mustahab to do the fast, then my qada will be paid off, and I will also receive the reward for fasting on that day. What it means that I cannot do a mustahab fast on a particular day means that in the case that I have a qada fast, I cannot fast with the niyyah of it being mustahab. My niyyah has to be that this is a fast which I missed and is obligatory upon me to fulfill, and I will receive the reward for having fasted on that day, whatever that reward that has been mentioned. Because the riwayah doesn't say whoever fasted with a niyyah of mustahab. It just says man sama, whoever fasted on this particular day will receive this reward, regardless of whether that fast was the fast of qada or of kafara or mustahab or so on and so forth, or I was fasting on behalf of somebody else. In fact, it's even mentioned, and just read today, that if a person is, for example, fasting on behalf of another person, so if a person has done a qada fast for a person who has passed away, then that person will also, even though it was not their fast, they're fasting on behalf of somebody else, they will also receive the reward of having fasted if they did that fast on a particular day which it was mustahab to fast. And of course these, the riwayat which say the 1st of Rajab or the first Thursday or 15, 16, 17, or 27th, 24th, or whatever days in Sha'ban, it is important to say that yes, they are mustahab, and there's extra emphasis being given on those particular days, but any day from the first to the last day of Rajab or of Sha'ban are fasts which are being recommended, and mustahab would receive and attract the reward. One riwayah, for example, states that person who fasted for 2 days in the month of Rajab will shake hands with the prophets on the day of judgment. And person who fasted for 3 days in the month of Rajab, wajaba lahu al-jannah. For that person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written paradise for him. So any days, it doesn't restrict us to a particular 3 days in the holy month of Rajab. Of course, what I will mention is with regards to the a'mal of Dawood, which is a very well-known story. I will not go into the story. Those who are interested in the story can read up of it in Mafatih al-Jinan. Suffice to mention that Dawood was a cousin of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, and was wrongly imprisoned, and his mother had come to the Imam to get an a'mal which would release her son. And the Imam told her, do this a'mal, fast on the 13th, 14th and 15th of Rajab. On the 15th of Rajab, do the a'mal which have been mentioned, a very extensive a'mal. At the moment she completed the a'mal, she saw that her son was coming towards her. So it's mentioned particularly for those who are praying for children, but also for any particular problem. It's very mujarrab as an action.
Okay, thank you. That's excellent. We've just got about 3 minutes till we go to break. So, as you were talking about the niyyah, I know that some scholars say that you can do a double niyyah. So, you can have the niyyah for making up your qada fast, but also combining that with
right. So if you fasted on that particular day, for example, on the 15th of Rajab or the 27th of Rajab or the 1st of Rajab or whatever day was recommended, you will receive the reward of having fasted on that day, you know. So your niyyah has to be of the niyyah of qada, because that was what was obligatory upon you. And of course you can have the niyyah that you're fasting on this day because you want the reward, but you will already get the reward, because like I said, the hadith says whosoever fasted on this day. So whether they fasted qada or kafara, everybody else doesn't need to know. That niyyah is for me. And in addition to that, one of the things which are also very recommended is the ziyarah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I'm just going to share this hadith from Imam Rida alayhi salam. This is mentioned in Mafatih al-Janan by Shaykh Abbas Qumi. He mentions one from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, and Sadiq alayhi salam قال من زار الحسين صلوات الله عليه في أول يوم من الرجب غفر الله له البتة. Whosoever did the ziyarah of Imam Hussain on the first day of Rajab, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive all of his sins, absolutely. وعن ابن أبي نصر قال سألت الرضا عليه الصلاة والسلام. Says, I asked Imam Rida عليه الصلاة والسلام أي الأوقات أفضل أن تزور فيها الحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام. What are the times which are the best times to visit Imam Hussain عليه السلام? قال النصف من رجب والنصف من شعبان. So visit him in the middle of the month of Rajab and the middle of the month of Sha'ban, and numerous other narrations which have been mentioned for that, but particularly in the middle of Rajab and the middle of Sha'ban, as significant emphasis for the ziyarah of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. If a person can go there, and even if a person cannot go there, to recite the ziyarah, which has been mentioned for these days, it will attract a significant amount of reward for that person.
Thank you very much, and very useful to know. Inshallah, we're going to go to break. We'll be back again in 5 minutes, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Ahlul Bayt Live on Ahlul Bayt TV, where we're talking about the blessings of the months of Rajab and Sha'ban, and we'll just be, inshallah, till the end of the program discussing specifically Sha'ban, and again some differing narrations among the other schools of thought. It seems the other schools of thought can't really decide on whether it's a holy month or not, and whether particularly 15th Sha'ban is a blessed night or not, and inshallah we will discuss that. So there are some narrations, Sayed Zafar Abbas, where as it is said, Sha'ban is a month of high excellence and is dedicated to the leader of the prophets, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his holy progeny. He used to keep fasts during the month and join it with the month of Ramadan. He used to say, Sha'ban is a month dedicated to me. Whoever keeps one fast during my month will be awarded heaven, provided one observes taqwa. So this seems to be his month.
Yes, it's very interesting actually, because there's two narrations. One narration mentions that Rajab is the month of Allah, and Sha'ban is the month of the Holy Prophet, and Ramadan is the month of the Ummah. Another narration which says Rajab is the month of Amirul Mu'mineen, and Sha'ban is the month of the Holy Prophet, and Ramadan is the month of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But both of them say that Sha'ban is the month of the Holy Prophet of Islam. And it's very interesting from the perspective that if you see the people who are, well, it's the only month in the Islamic calendar which doesn't have any sad occasions in it. There's no shahadat in the month of Sha'ban. It's mentioned, and the people who are born in this month of Sha'ban are all the people who are participants in the Battle of Karbala. So on the 3rd of Sha'ban, Imam Hussain is born. The 4th of Sha'ban, Abu Fadl Abbas. The 5th of Sha'ban, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. On the 7th of Sha'ban, Qasim ibn Hassan. On the 11th of Sha'ban, Ali al-Akbar. and the 15th of Sha'ban, Imam of our time, who is the avenger of Karbala.
Yeah.
So they're all related to Karbala.
Yeah.
Some narratives also state that the 1st of Sha'ban is the birthday of Sayyidah Zainab Salaamullah alayha. So everyone who's anything to do with Karbala is born in this holy month. Perhaps why Holy Prophet of Islam says it's my month, that the people who are born this month are my people, and they're the ones who are going to save my religion. So maybe that's one reason why the Holy Prophet of Islam says this. Again, in the preceding of the month of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's maybe an indication that Rajab is the month of Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam, which leads to Sha'ban, which is the Holy Prophet of Islam, which will lead you to God. And that if you want to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the way to get to Him. And of course that's well known, that there's the Holy Prophet of Islam says the way to me is through Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam, and the way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through the Holy Prophet. And also because the Holy Prophet of Islam, as is mentioned, used to fast, he encouraged people to fast. Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam says in that narration that once the Holy Prophet of Islam instructed me about this, I would not miss a fast in the month of Sha'ban. And that I will join it with the holy month of Ramadan. In obviously a famous dialogue or question answer, when the Holy Prophet of Islam was speaking to his companions, and he said, whom amongst you prays all night, and whom amongst you fasts all day, and whom amongst you completes the whole Quran before going to sleep. And Salman had replied, Ya Rasulullah, I do. And one companion got very annoyed and said, Ya Rasulullah, we've seen him eating and sleeping and drinking and doing all these things, why is he saying this? So Rasulullah said, ask him. So Salman said, Ya Rasulullah, I heard you tell Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam, whosoever does wudu before going to sleep, that person is as if he stayed up all night in ibadah. And he said that, well, what about completing the whole Quran every night? He says, you mentioned to Amirul Mu'mineen that Surah Al-Ikhlas is a thuluth of the Holy Quran. So before going to sleep, I recite Surah Al-Ikhlas 3 times, and that gives me the reward of the whole Quran. He said, what about this fasting every day of the year? So he said that the Holy Quran says, Man amila salihan falahu ashra amthal, for whoever does a good deed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him 10 in return for that. So I fast 3 days every month, and in the month of Sha'ban I join the fast with the holy month of Ramadan, and thus I get the reward for fasting every day of the year. So in any case, the month of Sha'ban, with this celebration, with this happiness of the people of Karbala, perhaps the celebration is that because the people of Karbala are going to go through all this suffering in their lives, that their month has been placed as the month which has just happiness in it.
It's like a mirror in a way.
Right. And that the month of Muharram is going to be the month where it's just going to be sadness, because that's the month of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and because this is also the month of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, therefore it's been granted happiness. And that the Holy Prophet of Islam mentions with regards to its merits, as we mentioned for Rajab, about the fasting, about the adhkar, about the amal, so on and so forth. And particularly with regards to the middle of the holy month of Sha'ban, which was holy before the 12th Imam, Salaamullah alayhi, that the Holy Prophet of Islam used to perform actions and a'mal in this night of the 15th of Sha'ban, and that the companions used to do so as well. So it is not a question of it being holy because of the 12th Imam, Salaamullah alayhi. Of course, that is also happiness with regards to that day. But even prior to that, it's a holy night.
Thank you very much. And we just got a caller on the line, which we will take. Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum salam.
From London. I have a query. I have a question, in fact. I understand that this is the month when we celebrate the Presenter Rebecca in Iran and Lebanon and other parts of the world. My question is, on whose ummati was Prophet ﷺ before he was mab'us, before he was designated a prophet? So was he a prophet, a born prophet, or was he designated later on, as the other people say, when the prophet became 40 years and it was revealed on him that he is a prophet? So on whose traditions was he following? Whose nubuwwat was he following?
Thank you very much for your question. So was the Holy Prophet born as a prophet, or did he?
The narrations regarding, in particularly in the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, are all towards the fact that the Holy Prophet Islam was well aware, and in fact made prophet way before the announcement. And so the Ba'that of the Holy Prophet Islam on the 27th of Rajab, according to the scholars of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, is with regards to an announcement and not a appointment, and that there's the distinction is important here.
Yeah.
We have various tafasir of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam from various times and from various prophets, stating that, for example, Adam alayhi salam, when he was created and Iblis refused to do sajda, and there's in the tafsir of that particular area where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, why did you not prostrate? Am kunta min al-a'lin, or do you consider yourself from the high ones? It's mentioned that high ones are referring to Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And therefore, from that time, the Holy Prophet of Islam was a prophet. Regarding himself, he says, kuntu nabiyan, well, Adam bain al-ma'i wa tina, was prophet,
yeah.
And Adam was still in the stages of creation. And with regards to other prophets of Allah, when they were asked, when the Holy Prophet Islam went for Mi'raj, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Holy Prophet Islam to ask them what, this is mentioned the hadith of Mi'raj, which also incidentally, according to many narrations, takes place on the night of the 27th of Rajab. And the Holy Prophet Islam asked them, after Allah said, ask them regarding their prophethood and how were they ordained as prophets. And they all said, when the Messenger of Allah led the salah of all the prophets, they all said that we were given prophethood on the condition that we acknowledge your prophethood, and on that condition we were given and we were ordained as prophets. So the fact that previous prophets were ordained prophets on the prophethood of the Holy Prophet of Islam tells us that definitely he was a prophet,
yeah.
for them to have been ordained on that basis. And of course, with regards to the stories of other prophets, most famously of Isa alayhi salam having spoken in the cradle, this is not beyond the realms of possibility. As with regards to the announcement of prophethood, which is what the bi'tha and the mab'ath of the Holy Prophet Islam is to do with, is on the 27th of Rajab, according to the Imami scholars, when the Holy Prophet Islam told the people and announced to the people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded him to tell the people regarding his prophethood. So in answer to that, the Sharia that the Holy Prophet Islam was following was his own,
Yeah.
From the beginning of his life. And for that reason, very famously, it's mentioned that when he went with the trade caravans to Syria with Abu Talib alayhi salam, on the instruction of Khadija Salamullah alayha before they got married, and he did not eat in Syria from the person who had invited them to eat, because he said that this is not slaughtered in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is of course at least 15 years prior to the announcement of Prophet. Of course, he gets married to Khadija Salamullah alayha prior to the 15 years prior to the announcement of Prophet. And of course, the marriage itself is a proof that he did not get married in the way of Jahiliyyah. He got married in the way of Islam.
Yeah.
And that in itself is sufficient for us to note of what practices the Holy Prophet Islam was following prior to his announcement or telling people about his prophethood.
Thank you. That's very interesting, and illuminating, because often we don't reflect upon these important questions with regard to his nubuwah. And just to go back to Sha'ban, it's quite interesting because also in other schools of thought it's actually discouraged to join Sha'ban with the month of Ramadan. I don't know if you've come across that, but I think there are 2 days before the month of Ramadan when I think it's prohibited to fast, or it's discouraged to fast as well. And this is one of these little rulings that came in. I don't know whether, again, which is part of my overall hypothesis, that these changes were brought in order to identify who was following the teachings of Ahlul Bayt and who was following the teachings of the state.
Unfortunately, there is certainly very strong historical reports to support such a hypothesis, because in the time of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, there would be people who would be asked questions regarding particular rulings, and they would say, go and see what the followers of Ja'far ibn Muhammad are doing and do the opposite. So much so that there are riwayat regarding that in our text as well. So
they actually used to be sent to go and see what the followers of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam were doing, and then they would
do the opposite.
So
it's mentioned, for example, that one person was asked regarding the opening or the closing of the eyes, and up to comic levels. So the one person was asked regarding opening or closing of the eyes in Salah. So he said, go and see what the followers of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam are doing, and they came back and they said some of them are opening their eyes, some of them are closing their eyes. So keep one eye open and one eye closed. And I don't know how you do that, but there you go. So to the extent, and this happened to such an extent that from later Imams we have narrations which state that if you don't know, there's no way for you to find out what our teachings are, then look at what the enemies are doing and do the opposite, because that's what they did.
Yeah.
So this was a very campaign that went on for a long time in order to try and bring changes to the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam as a whole, and not for people to follow that. But in our school, for example, it's extremely encouraged to fast on those final days in the month of Sha'ban, leading up to the month of Ramadan. And the reasoning for that is there, that so that you're prepared for the month of Ramadan that is impending to come. That when we talk about the holy month of Ramadan, we talk about the season of taqwa, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't guarantee anything. It says, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, maybe you might become muttaqi and pious as a result of this fasting. But if we've done the preparation of coming to Rajab and Sha'ban for the marathon, which is Ramadan, then we got a better chance of getting to that taqwa. And it's like anything else. It's like, if I want to run the marathon, I'm going to prepare months in advance. So here is the marathon, which is Shahr Ramadan, and Allah is giving me this opportunity. Here's your chance to prepare and to train for the month of Ramadan through these holy months, in which not only are you going to be preparing for the month of Ramadan, but you're going to get reward for doing so as well.
Yeah. And also receiving that inspiration, we could say that spiritual inspiration, which I think, again, after this long period of months since the end of the month of mourning, then it's a time for awakening the heart. And also, actually, as you said, we've had, inshallah, there'll be this month of happiness, then the month of fasting, before going into the month of mourning again. I mean, just to go back to, again, some of these, and I'm bringing this up because obviously people may well be searching online for information about Sha'ban. And so there is obviously a variety of information out there, and they may become a bit confused by what's been written. So this is why we've got one site here that is quoting from quite a famous scholar of the Hanbali school, Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali. And he actually, well, as he says, some of the tabi'een based in Sham, such as Khalid ibn Ma'dan, Makhul and Luqman ibn Amir, would revere the night of 15th Sha'ban by offering nawafil prayers during the night. It is said that they were influenced by Israeliyat, so these narrations that have been interpolated into the Islamic tradition from the Jewish tradition. Gradually, this custom spread to many areas of the Muslim empire, creating misunderstandings and differences of opinion among the people. Some accepted it, some whom were devout worshippers from Basra, but most of the scholars of the Hijaz rejected and condemned it, as well as the scholars of Medina and the Maliki school of law, all agreeing to it being an innovation. The scholars of Sham differed as to how the 15th of Sha'ban should be distinguished. Some, the first set preferred spending the night in the mosque collectively, and then he names these people again. They would adorn themselves with special clothes, hasten to the mosque, where they would remain in worship all night. And then it says the other set of scholars regarded marking 15th Sha'ban by collective prayer and supplication as being disliked. So, and in us as well, it's actually, there are still other Sunni sources that are actually saying that where the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him and his family, said Allah observes his creatures on the middle night of Sha'ban, and this is in Al-Sahih by Ibn Hibban, Tabarani, and also Ibn Hajar Asqalani as well, and they are all saying it's thiqah. This narration is thiqah. It's sahih, So, what's the?
Well, I think a little bit of context is necessary. As I say, Holy Prophet of Islam used to observe the night of 15th of Sha'ban, even prior to any significance of it with our 12th Holy Imam. What's important to know with regards to how different schools of thought or within different schools of thought, how different scholars have interpreted particular rulings, is firstly to state that as far as School of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam is concerned, there's no significance of geography. Whether the people of Hijaz or the people of Sham or the people of Yemen or people of Basra or people of Kufa did a particular thing is of no significance.
Yeah.
What is important is what the Ma'sumin alayhi salam did, regardless of where they were or followers of Ma'sumin did. However, that is not the case in other schools of thought. So, for example, the Maliki school of thought, and Imam Malik particularly, only took traditions from the people of Medina, and rejected traditions from the people of everywhere else.
Right.
So that may be one of the reasons why, because the people of Medina at that particular time had a particular thought about a particular thing, and therefore they rejected it. That is not a hujjah on rejecting it altogether. That's because Malik did not take traditions from anywhere else apart from Medina. Because he only considered the people of Medina to be thiqah.
And then it may have even then been a particular group from Medina as well,
right.
Not everyone from Medina.
So, and this is because other schools of thought took from other places. So for example, another school of thought lived in Kufa, another school of thought lived in another place, and so on and so forth. Therefore, they took from different places, but Malik only took from the people of Medina. And that if a hadith was from somebody outside Medina, he would reject that hadith. So that's one in terms of the context. The other thing is that with regards to Isra'iliyat, or things which have been incorporated into the religion from, that's mainly, not all, but mainly to do with Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, or something to do with Bani Israel. And that the 15th of Sha'ban incidentally has nothing mentioned in it with regards to Musa alayhi salam or with regards to Bani Israel either. So for it to be Israeliyat seems a very unlikely proposition. And the other thing that we mentioned again in the beginning is also important to mention again, is that what we're talking about are mustahab actions. And therefore, if a person did it with the intention of it being commanded, and it was not the case, then they will still receive the reward of doing so. Some people may, at this point, raise an objection with regards to our objection towards certain prayers in the holy month of Ramadan. And our objection towards those prayers is not to do with the fact that they're mustahab. Because there are mustahab prayers in the holy month of Ramadan that we're commanded to do. Our objection towards it is for doing it in jama'ah. And that is because the Holy Prophet of Islam said that only obligatory prayers are to be done in jama'ah, and mustahab prayers are to be done at home. And that's our objection. Our objection is not towards the mustahab prayers in the holy month of Ramadan, even if they're based on a hadith which is not necessarily correct from the sanad point of view. So that's important to mention. So even if it's the case, which is not, as we've mentioned, that there are scholars from other schools of thought which have mentioned the thiqa, and have mentioned it to be thiqa, to be doing a'mal on the 15th of Sha'ban. But even if that was not the case, still doing a'mal on that night with the intention that it is the command of the Holy Prophet of Islam or one of the A'immah alayhi salam, would attract that same reward regardless of whether it was the case or not.
Thank you very much. That was an excellent conclusion, Sayed Zafar Abbas, and inshallah we look forward to having you back again on the programme. Very illuminating. Inshallah we'll see you again. Assalamu alaikum.
Ahlul Bayt TV, the Holy Household